right, welcome to the Harmony Channel. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Thank you so much for joining me. As we do every Wednesday, we want to catch up with Pastor Corey Brooks from Project Hood in Chicago and get an update on his walk across America as he raises money for Project Hood and the project they're doing right there in O Block in Chicago. Pastor Brooks, where you at today?
So we're in McKinney, Virginia. We're about 110 miles outside of Durham, North Carolina.
Oh, all right. So you're going to be in Shemeka's neighborhood shortly. Maybe
Yeah,
she'll
we're gonna
come
be
out and
hanging out
walk
with
with you.
Shemeka.
Yeah, maybe she'll come out and walk with you. Hey, again, we're here to get an update on what you're doing, but I also want to get an update on what you're learning about yourself, what you're learning about America. As what do you got to be 40 days into this by now, or how many days into this?
This is day 73.
Oh, 70, 70 days into this. What are you learning first about yourself?
Well, I'm learning about myself about perseverance and endurance. I've had some struggles with my foot. I have a tumor on my heel. It's not cancerous, but I got to have it removed permanently. So we thought just cutting it off would help, but it's still painful. So they're going to have it surgically removed. And I'm finding out that my threshold for pain is a lot higher than I thought. I used to think that I had a low threshold of pain from playing sports. I didn't like sprained ankles and things like that. But I'm learning that when the cause is right and when you're focused and when you got a good team, you can almost endure anything. So I'm pressing on. I'm keeping going. I'm staying up. And so I'm learning a lot about myself.
What are you learning about America?
Well, I'm learning that one, we're in a lot of trouble. I don't think that people realize that we are so behind as far as how we relate to one another, how we talk with one another, how we communicate with one another. And we're seeing it in every aspect of life, how it's playing out. And I think somehow or another, we got to figure out how we can put America first. And regardless of our race, regardless of our political opinions, we got to start making sure that America is at its very best. And so I'm seeing, especially in urban areas, and it's very hurtful to say, but I think as a people, we really got to wake up and smell the coffee about what's going on in our community and take responsibility for it. We got kids who can't read. We got violence issues that are running rampant. Fatherless homes that are beyond what should be. And these things are not being spoken of by our leaders. And I think as a result, we're going to continue to see our neighborhoods fall apart. No matter how much money government keeps pumping into it, it's just not going to work.
It sounds like you're saying, like, I'm seeing O Block everywhere. It's not just in Chicago.
Yeah, I'm seeing O Block everywhere. Newark, Philadelphia, Baltimore. Everywhere I go, I'm seeing the exact same thing over and over. Kids who can't read, failing schools, unions that are pushing an agenda, parents who don't have a choice on where to send their kids, and they're sending them to these failing schools. It's the same rinse and repeat over and over that these far left liberal policies have been giving our community for a long time.
Corey, and feel free to state the obvious. What's the solution?
The solution is, one, we need better leadership. Everything, in the words of John Maxwell, rises and falls on leadership. So within our community, we need to have better leaders, and we need to hold them accountable. Number two, we've got to get our kids educated. I mean, there's no way out of this situation if we don't get them educated. And first and foremost, we have to get God back in our communities, back in our families, back at the head of everything. And so there's so much work that needs to be done. There is no lack of work. We all got to roll up our sleeves and get busy and try to win our communities back and hopefully have a place for our children to be able to succeed in the future.
Remind everyone where they can go to support you.
Please go to Project Hood. That's HOOD, projecthood.org. And you can find out about the walk. You can find out how to support what we're doing as we walk all across America.
Pastor Brooks, we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
All right. That's Pastor Corey Brooks. He's walking across America. All right, let's get into today's show. Shemeka Michelle, Delano Squires, Virgil Walker joining me. I want to talk a bit, guys, about Megyn Kelly, Charlie Kirk, Brandon Tatum, and just this infighting and back and forth over Israel and Charlie Kirk. I want to play, let's start with the SOT number 9. This is Megyn Kelly talking about what Charlie Kirk said to Tucker Carlson, this infamous moment or speech that Tucker gave. And did Charlie Kirk know Tucker Carlson was going to be critical of Israel? Megyn Kelly is arguing here that he did, and she was there, or she has a recording, of Charlie Kirk telling Tucker, no, go to the max, play it to the brink. Let's play SOT number 9.
I found a video of me, Tucker, and Charlie speaking backstage right before Tucker went out. Tucker and I were talking. Charlie came over and interrupted for just a second. And you can hear him on this tape, which I've listened to many times. It's very clear on my phone, less clear here probably as we play it. But he says to Tucker, go Max. He interrupts the conversation because he has to say to Tucker something. And what was so important to him to tell Tucker was, go Max. Here it is.
Go Max.
It's quick. It just happens to be on tape. And it backs up what Tucker said. And so I just think we need to be realistic. Charlie understood what was happening to the conservative movement over Israel. He probably understood it better than any of us because he absolutely loved Israel. And yet he represented and was of young people. He was young. That was his constituency. That's where he spent all of his time. And he knew that even on the right side of the aisle, they had turned and were turning on Israel. And knowing all of that, he told Tucker to go out there and do all the things Tucker did. Go Max, he said. Now, why did he do that? Because he knew there was a faction within the conservative movement that needed a voice. They needed somebody to put their thoughts and their complaints and their objections into words in a public setting and not just cede the whole argument to the other side, which has been dominating conservative thought and media forever.
I'm blown away that Megyn Kelly's being this transparent and this courageous. And this is a hot button issue. I think she's nailed it here. I think that not to make this about me, but it is, when I saw this clip yesterday, when I rewatched it this morning, and when I watched it again yesterday, I think about the battles I've had to fight for 2 or 3 years about just discussing this Israel issue and trying to explain to people that, and I've done it on this show, anybody that watches this show consistently is like, hey man, if we don't get in here and take ownership of this issue and this topic, we're going to leave it to Nick Fuentes and others that perhaps have motives that aren't pure or aren't biblical. We're going to leave it to them. And so I see what Tucker's doing and what Charlie Kirk recognizes, like, hey man, either we're going to lose all young people and they're going to think we're cowards and they're going to abandon us and they're going to follow Nick Fuentes, or we're going to have to get in here and take control of this argument ourselves or lead this argument ourselves. I think it's the only option that we have. Charlie Kirk was trying to fill it. Tucker is filling it. Delano, your reaction, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Jason. I think particularly younger voters seem to be asking more questions or seem to be just more open with their willingness to disagree with, America's relationship or policy towards Israel, and particularly, the war between Israel and Hamas. There are a lot of young voters. Now, we expect it on the left, but even on the right, I think young people are starting to question that. Now, some are doing it in good faith. Some at times seem like, they're trolling and they just want to be edgy and they want to say the unsayable things, which I think is a huge phenomenon in the the age of social media, that all the things that people say you can't talk about, these are the third rails in politics. You can't talk about race, right? You can't talk about black folks. You can't talk about LGBT. You can't talk about Israel, or America's relationship with Israel. And I think there's some young people who are saying all of those third rails we're willing to touch, and we're going to touch them until, we no longer get zapped. And I feel like that's part of this conversation that's coming out. It's clear that Charlie Kirk was trying to be a moderating influence in that respect. And even he talked about it carefully. He'd say, I get accused of anti-Semitism, and I do things in Israel, and I support Israel. But if I being Charlie Kirk, if I can't even bring these things up in a sort of a rational, objective way, then to your point, then people like Nick Fuentes and people on the other side who are much more radical and willing to use much more radical language, they are going to be the ones that dominate on this particular issue and that young people are drawn to. So it seems as if, again, that triangulation is still occurring to some respect, and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson are trying to put themselves in that space and fill that void.
Delano, I'm going to ask Virgil this question, and I'm not asking it to you unless you want to volunteer and jump back in at the end of this. But Virgil, when I saw what happened with Kevin Roberts, the head of the Heritage Foundation, he kind of got in the crosshairs of this whole deal because I think he's arguing basically the same thing as Charlie Kirk and Megyn Kelly is like, hey, we have to engage in this discussion and we can't cancel a Tucker Carlson or we're going to lose these young people. We got to quit losing these young people because the old people are dying and the young people are becoming middle-aged and we will have lost them. Virgil? Uh-oh. You muted yourself, Virgil. There we go.
I think a lot of what you're saying with that is true. There's a lot of things that are happening in this revelation that Megyn Kelly is offering. One, she's exposing the fact that the reality is there's chess being played. This is not checkers, right? This is a deeper thing that's happening, even from a standpoint of Charlie's understanding of Israel and what needed to happen, the conversation that young people needed to have, and the openness with which current culture is examining political issues, public policy. We've got to have the conversation, and so far they've been off limits. They require such stringent, scrutiny before you're allowed to say them, and you saw that in what took place with Kevin at Heritage. They require such scrutiny. There are things that can't be said. Delano mentioned the third rail. These are issues we're not allowed to touch. And I think to the degree that we're witnessing people who are in good faith trying to have those conversations, they're being treated like those who should be ostracized. They're being treated like we want to treat Nick Fuentes. You can't say that. You're not allowed. We shouldn't be saying these things. When in reality, we have got to find a lane to, rather than demonize an individual and cancel them, we have got to figure out a way to have right conversations and articulate our defense of America, of an American first policy, or why we're aligning ourselves with Israel on a particular issue. These things have got to be clear. They've got to be addressed. They've got to be dealt with. And I think the best way to deal with them is out in the open and up front. Again, we witnessed what took place behind the scenes. Tucker, if that indeed was what Tucker was, or that indeed is what
Charlie.
What Charlie was talking about, if he was saying, "Hey, go to the max," again, that was a chess move to make sure that the conversation was still being had.
Shemeka, I quite frankly am surprised that Megyn Kelly has taken the risk that she's taken. I think that she's evolved, is a far more of a risk taker than I perhaps had given her credit for. This is one of the best moments, and it's not that she's chosen a side, but she's just chosen to share what she witnessed, saw, and her perspective on it. She's shared it in such a transparent way. I'm rather impressed with Megyn Kelly here.
Yeah, I'm impressed with her as well, especially if she doesn't turn around and start explaining, which it doesn't seem like she will, but we are used to so many people doing that. I am very impressed with her doing that. She also came out and said she didn't see anything where Candace was going against Erica Kirk. So she just seems to really be siding on the side of common sense. I agree with what everyone has said. Charlie was 31 years old. Of course, he loved young people. He had his his thumb on the pulse of young people. So he understands that they are asking questions. But I think also what this is showing us is there are a lot of us who are older who maybe weren't paying attention, who's tired of being told we can't ask these questions. I remember the interview that Tucker gave with Ted Cruz when he was really pressing him for answers. I appreciate someone putting their foot on the gas and saying, let's get some answers. We're tired of being told that we can't ask these questions. We're tired of being told that everything is anti-Semitic. It's almost like the racism card. We're tired of hearing Black people complain and call every single thing racism. That's kind of where we are now with anti-Semitism. No, we don't want to see people hurt, but we do believe that it is okay to ask questions, however they appear. Maybe you feel like you don't like the way the question was worded, but the questions need to be asked and people are looking for answers. So I appreciate Megyn saying, this is just common sense. Let's just stop playing the games and pretending like we can't see these things, pretending like Tucker or Candace or anybody else are such these evil people. People are just asking questions.
Delano, I apologize up front for not preparing you for this question that I'm about to ask, but again, we are at a time where I think conflict is necessary because as we keep people are like, no, man, I'm going to say what I actually think. And I know that you had some disagreements, I would call it, with Charlie Kirk as he talked about MLK and the passing of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, or is it 64? I can't remember. 65, 64. And I, as an observer of the conflict, was like, we have to have these conversations, this tension, without accusing someone of being a bad actor or acting in bad faith. We just got to have the debate. Was the civil rights movement a net positive or was it a net negative? I'm willing to let people have that discussion without thinking that their motives are bad or they're racist or any of these other things. It's politics. You get to disagree. And so I apologize again for asking you the question, but again, I felt like you and Charlie had some tension there that I felt was unnecessary. I thought you were a little unfair to Charlie Kirk. Yeah.
So I'm not sure which part of it was unfair. Yes, you're right, Jason. And let me say this: I have not mentioned this publicly at all since he was assassinated. And the reason why is because it's irrelevant, right? A man is cut down in front of the whole world, in front of his wife and his children. Whatever little quick online beef that I had with that person is completely irrelevant. But I will say this because I do think it speaks to this issue of conflict and public debate, right? Last year, this is 2024, around MLK Day, Charlie Kirk announced he was going to go after MLK. These are his words. And he, talk about the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's cool. I'm a big boy. I wrote a piece, 1,200 word column for The Blaze, and I went into each of the arguments that he was making. And I made several counter arguments of why I thought, not that it was racist, because again, that is irrelevant to me. I thought the arguments were flawed, and some of them were rehashes of things that people had already talked about in terms of, Dr. King's moral life. I was making substantive arguments that addressed his points. And one of them is like, look, if you want to say that only men who are faithful to their wives are worthy of public honor, then there's a lot of people we're going to have to stop talking about and stop lionizing. And I could start from wherever I want to start from and work down the list. But one of the things that happened after that is that Charlie Kirk talked about the piece on his podcast, and he said something to the effect of, he said, Blaze wrote a piece attacking me, and he read an excerpt and he said, who's this moron Delano Squires? And Jason, that hurt me, Jason. No one has ever said anything that mean to me, but I took it in stride and I responded. I quote tweeted after somebody sent me the video and I said, look, I said, Charlie, I didn't attack you. I criticized your ideas. This goes to your point, Jason. And I said, if you can't handle that, then you should just write to me your journal and keep it pushing. Either way, I'm willing to debate you and your 4 co-hosts on this particular issue. You just named the time and place. And what happened, Charlie never responded. Jack Posobiec responded, and Jack and I went back and forth, and Jack said, you called us racist. I did no such thing. Then he said, I implied that they were racist. And that actually hurt me more than being called a moron. Because for somebody to think that I, Delano E. Squires, would write a 1,200-word column and all I'm going to do is imply something is an insult to my skills as a writer. If I want to hit a man, I'm going to hit a man. And it's going to be crystal clear when he gets hit. So that exchange revealed something to me, which is many of the people who bark the loudest are attack dogs in the mirror only. Because when you approach them with substantive arguments, they rely on the same tactics and tricks that the left does, which is to start throwing out terms like racist, fascist, Nazi, communist, Marxist. He didn't say that about me. He tried to say that I was saying that about him. And the reason he was doing that is because if he can convince people who didn't read the piece that I'm calling him a racist, then they can dismiss my ideas instead of having to deal with them directly. And what it told me, Jason, is that a lot of people are soft. And that's why I don't get into a lot of these debates, because I spent 5+ years seeing people on the left do this. They say to white people, bad, white people bad, white people bad. Then the white people turn around and say boo, and then they start saying, oh my gosh, you hurt my feelings. I don't tolerate it from the right either. So if you want to be in the public square, if you want to have these debates, you have to be willing to be criticized without then you saying to people, you're calling me a racist and a bigot without cause. And that is the part that rubbed me the wrong way. Again, Charlie didn't respond to my tweet. And again, in the wake of his death, there's no reason for me to bring it up. But I'm fine with you bringing it up because I do think it speaks to this particular issue, which is there are a lot of people who say that they want debate, but when they are challenged on their ideas, they will fall back on the same tired tactics, which is to try to take attention away from their ideas and then try to accuse other people of playing the ad hominem game.
Yeah.
So I apologize for not preparing you for the question because I'm equally unprepared to fully have the discussion. It just came up because I believe in, like, we're going to have, this conflict is good. Iron's going to have to sharpen iron. So I want to apologize. Put me and Delano back on camera. I want to apologize for this because I'm unprepared. But I read the column in real time. People reached out to me about the column. I thought their argument of like, hey, there's an implication, it's being implied that they're racist. I thought that was a legitimate complaint. Obviously, anybody that knows, I'm invested in your success. I know you better than I do Charlie Kirk or Jack Posobiec and all of that. And so, again, I'm not prepared because I'd have to reread it again. But I thought it was a fair implication. I felt like, if I were the editor, we would have we would have shaped that in a way that no one could come away with that implication. But again, I'm not prepared because it just came up off the top of my head, and so not looking to debate it. But I am looking for us to have a acknowledgement that this conflict is good, and we need to allow this conflict to take place without implying, assuming the worst motives to anybody. It's just, hey, because Charlie was standing on Vince Everett Ellison's writings as it relates to Dr. King. Virgil's been all over this topic as well.
Chad.
He was, and I can remember when he made the things about MLK, he had Vince Ellison on his show, and so he's just standing on Vince's shoulders. But I don't want to belabor this. I did want to bring it up because, this show we try to be authentic.
Real quick, Jason.
Go ahead.
Real quick. But one of the things that I did, because again, I'm a fair guy, right? I asked Jack. I said, look, do a snapshot of the piece and the parts where you feel like I was implying that you're a racist. Quote tweet back to me. And he never did. Now he responded back to me and he said, no, you said it. You said it. Don't run from it now. And again, that's the part that I can't respect. I don't respect people who will, to Shemeka's point, weaponize accusations of racism or anti-Semitism or homophobia or transphobia when somebody makes a substantive point. I have equally little respect for people who are criticized for the things that they say without being accused of that, and then read implications into that in order to, as a shield from having to defend the things that they actually say. So again, I try to keep equal weights and measures. And again, I'm not trying to belabor it, but when I ask somebody to send me back the parts that are racist and they can't do that, then that tells me where things are.
So here's what I hear: both groups doing the same thing that they're accusing the other of. That they're implying back to you, hey, what you're doing is racist. You're implying back to them. And racist may not be the right word, but just unfair. And so let's just put a pin in there because, again, I'm not prepared. I'm having an organic conversation, and I got us a little bit off track. Virgil, bring you back into the conversation.
Yeah, I think what you all just even in that conversation demonstrated is the need for more dialogue and conversation. I don't disagree with what Delano laid out from a standpoint of our need not to knee-jerk respond to genuflect to the idea that I can use a term like racist or homophobic or transphobic in order to shut down conversation about substantive arguments. Now, I'm not trying to delve into the particulars of that particular exchange. I wasn't a part of that. But Delano knows me. Delano knows the stuff I've posted. Delano knows what I've said about MLK. And what happens in that exchange, if there's disagreement, Delano will call me or I will call Delano. I'll pick up a phone in a heartbeat and say, yo, D, talk to me. What did I miss? And he'll go at me, bro, here's what you need to think about. And we'll have substantive conversations behind the scenes, not on social media for everybody to pick apart. And then I can circle back in social media after we've had that conversation to say, well, here's where I stand and here's why. And my argument is sharpened because of the debate, because of the conversation. That's how that should work. What we're witnessing more times than not, especially over the course of the past few weeks, is the absolute opposite. People making accusations, people, identify, hey, so-and-so's racist or so-and-so's this or so-and-so's that. And it's based upon half-baked 280 character ideas that are posted in a social media space rather than on a lot of these people, not all, but a lot of these people have each other's phone numbers and can pick up a phone and deal with the conversation and address whatever issue they have and then come back out. I think it's important for the dialogue to happen both behind the scenes and on social media and in the platform. It's important for us to have the debate and for there to be a robust debate on and to be able to demonstrate that we can have substantive arguments and disagree, but still have respect for one another.
And you ended it, the last thing you said, respect for each other, is as a public speaker, as a writer, I have made mistakes and have gone too far and painted a picture that's, inappropriate. And I still think I'm worthy of respect. And so people, again, sometimes I think we have to offer up some grace, even when people are talking about us. And it's still possible to maintain respect for people, even when they've made a mistake. Particularly if you look at their whole body of work or what they stand for, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes people, they are on edge, read things into everything, and just they're extra hypersensitive. And again, I'm not trying to, but when people don't understand, because let's say if this is a year ago, Charlie Kirk may have already been in the mindset, and if you talk to people, he was already in the mindset, you know what, man, I'm under enough heat here, I could get killed. And he could have been very aware of that. And so any implication that he's racist in his mind or whatever is like, man, and this is coming from conservatives, this is where people start saying they're kind of justifying whatever bad happens to me. And again, knowing both sides, I don't see bad motives, but I do see perhaps jumping to conclusions or people being imprecise and then being judged very harshly on their impreciseness rather than being granted grace. And the only people, not the only people, but the people I bend over most backwards for as it relates to grace are people that are claiming the cross, that are out evangelizing and promoting Jesus Christ. I'm and this guy doesn't do it in an authentic way. But the level of patience, the little bit of patience that I have for a Nick Fuentes is that he claims Jesus Christ. And so that makes me back up and not be as hypercritical. If he were some secular person or he never claimed Jesus Christ, and again, I don't even think he's doing it in an appropriate way, but it makes me say, well, at least we got that common ground, and there's a chance I can reach this person while still rebuking him for the tribalism and some of the racist things, and I hate to use the word racist, but the tribalism mostly. Anyway, Shemeka, I've talked us into a corner here or just expressing my organic thoughts. Shemeka, I'm gonna give you the final say, and then I'm gonna punt and move on to the next show. Shemeka, your final thoughts here.
My final thoughts, Jason, is just still that I feel like these conversations need to be had. I know that I've seen some people who appear to have come apart at the seams that I respected, that I'm kind of looking at kind of sideways now. But I think the conversations need to be had in the right place. Of course, I don't think a lesbian should be in a classroom trying to tell little girls or ask little girls about their sexuality, but have the conversation, the debate. If you're trans, have the debate. I'm going to think you're mentally ill, but have the debate just in the right places at the right time with the right people. So I'm just all for people having these conversations and not being silenced because people fear debating the actual issues.
Thank you, guys. We're 1 minute past. I need to let Delano go, and we're going to go. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next time here on Harmony.
Up so divided, stop fighting and stand tall. We used to be a nation, one united. Now we're headed for downfall. God, let your light shine down. What we need more than anything now, harmony. Let's make a simple vow. Let's come together now. Harmony. Put all your weapons down. Love one another.
mastermind.